Hello, YouTube. GeoScholar going live today. One thing I wanted to talk about is with the Winter Olympics now over, I wanted to talk more about the 2022 Winter Olympics coming up. They will be held in China and for the first time. This will be a city that will hold both the Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics. Beijing, the capital of China, held the 2008 Summer Olympics. 14 years later, held the Winter Olympics. This will be a first. It'll be a first for cities that will be holding the Olympics. It'll be a first. It'll be I have often thought about the case where a city could hold both the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics. And this is a case where this is going to happen. And because of this, I wanted to talk about the geography being involved with the 2022 Winter Olympics. One thing to understand about Beijing, China, it has a very extreme climate. It can get very hot and humid during the summer. And then during the winter, it gets very, very cold. Okay, I'm going to point. Beijing's right there. In fact, I will give you a close up to where Beijing is. Right there. There's Beijing. Beijing is in northeast China. I just showed the location of Beijing, China. Now, I want to give you some more details about this. Beijing being in the North China Plain, you have to really think about this. Up in this region where, you've got the mountains right here. You got the mountains here, and then you've got the North China Plain here. And one of the things that is going to be a very big concern with the 2022 Winter Olympics is the lack of snow. This is going to be the first Olympics where the snow is going to be a very... Remember this. Not every city that has cold winters gets a whole lot of snow. You have to remember that. And Beijing, China is a very important case of that. Beijing, China, its rainfall patterns are heavily monsoonal. And in the winter time, where the Siberian high pressure system, the anticyclone, I'll show you, I'll use my map. Here you have Beijing right there. Actually, it's not looking good on this camera. I am using a new phone for this video, and I don't know how the lag is. But yeah, there's Beijing. You have to understand where Beijing is. Beijing is on the northern edge of the North China Plain, not too far from the mountains. And in the winter, you have the situation where you have Russia is a very big country. And so you have a very large landmass. And you have a very land based high pressure system which dominates over much of Asia during the winter. High pressure system going clockwise, and then you have this situation where, boom, you have you got cold air blowing south. Now, you have to understand it's blowing over land. If it blows over the Sea of Japan or blows over the Yellow Sea, you're going to get, you might, if it gets cold enough, you might get some snow whipped up. But you're in Beijing, you're further inland, you're further inland, and because you're further inland, you have this situation where you're having more of a continental influence. You're not really getting much snow coming from this direction because it's really dry. The Gobi Desert's right here. Gobi Desert is here. You've got the deserts out here. You've got, the Taklamakan Desert, the Tarim Basin out here. You've got the very dry conditions here. And so in the winter time, when you have, certain places get a lot of snow, will get snow, but it's dry. It's drier because you got the high pressure system dominating. And so you got that north to south, and then you don't have the conditions that will create a lot of snow. Granted, now, if you're here in Japan, on the other hand, you would be more likely to get snow because that cold air will blow over the Sea of Japan and it'll whip up more snow. And you get you get lake effect snow, you get sea effect snow. In fact, the sea effect snow will be more powerful here because you've got cold air, very cold freezing air blowing over the sea. And that cold air, seawater takes a little longer to freeze than lake water, fresh water. Fresh water will freeze quicker. Seawater, not as easily. It'll freeze, but not so easily. So you're more likely to get a situation where the sea is still not frozen, but you get that cold air blowing down and generates sea effect snow. But if you get an inland here, like in Beijing, not as likely. And it's going to, now if you get towards the coast where, you're in Tianjin, little more likely, or if you're in Dalian, little more likely, but Beijing, not so much. And that lack of snow is a big concern. And the reason you're going to have that lack of snow because of that seasonal monsoon. Now in the summer, you would be more likely to get precipitation because, you've got the monsoonal patterns, the low pressure systems that are coming up from the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific, bringing in, those are what are causing the typhoons. Those are what is causing the cyclones. And so you've got the warm, moist winds coming out of the south and is generating a lot of moisture, generating a lot of rain. So you've got a very seasonal, you got a very monsoonal effect. And that monsoonal effect is not going to be as advantageous for China. But as I'm saying, Sorry. I'm getting stuff coming in. I'm trying to show the chat. On my new camera, I cannot see the chat. So if I'm not responding to any of your messages that you're putting on the chat, I'm sorry. I just am getting the hang of this phone. But that's the thing about China, and they're having to create snow. And I'm going to talk more about that. Back again. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the seasonal effect, you have to understand China's climate. You have to understand how monsoonal it is. And you have to understand that is why this will be the first Olympics where the snow, most of it will be artificial. And the big reason for that is because there really isn't much snow in Beijing during the winter. Not a lot. And, I explained the monsoonal effect. And because of that, you've got very little snow to work with, but you've got plenty of cold weather. So you can create a lot of snow, and this will be a first for the Olympics. The Winter Olympics, where most of the snow is going to be artificial because, for the most part, Beijing, China doesn't get all that much snow in the winter, despite having very cold winters. And that has a lot to do with the Siberian high pressure system that sits over much of Asia, and you've got that high pressure bringing in cold, dry winds, and that being a factor in not a whole lot of snow occurring. And so that's a bit of geographic factors that have to be considered for the 2022 Winter Olympics. And that is the end of my stream. I am signing off. Be sure to like and subscribe.